All right, today we're doing something a little different. We're basically cracking open a time capsule, a guide to living a long, happy life that was written all the way back in 1895. So let's dive in and see what kind of timeless wisdom we can dig up. So, have you ever wondered what the secrets to a good life were? Before we had wellness apps, life coaches, and this huge self-help industry. What did people think was essential? Well, we're going to find out by taking a look at this really fascinating book, The Art of Living Long and Happily. Okay, so this book was written by a guy named Henry Hardwick. And right out of the gate, he challenges this belief that was super common back then. And honestly, you could argue it's still pretty common today. Hardwick, he just dives right in and confronts this idea head on. The whole notion that happiness is just random, something that happens to you. But he argues that no, the wisest people in history, we're talking Socrates, Benjamin Franklin, they all believe something way more radical, that happiness is actually a choice. So the core argument of this entire book is that happiness isn't about luck. It's not about your circumstances. Instead, he says it's a skill. You could even call it a science. It's something you can actually learn and practice systematically. And to prove his point, Hardwick gives this really powerful example. He points to two guys from history who were on the complete opposite ends of the spectrum. You've got Epictetus, who was a slave, and then you have Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor. I mean, you can't get more different than that, right? And yet, both of them were known for being incredibly happy. Why? Because they both applied a similar philosophy, a system, to their lives. And that's the key takeaway here. It's not what happens to you, it's all about how you manage your own inner world. So this really is the big question the book tries to answer. It frames happiness in a totally different way. It's not some lottery you hope to win. It's more like a craft, like being a carpenter or a musician, something you can actually master if you have the right instruction and the discipline to practice. That phrase right there, systematic pursuit, that is absolutely key. It's not about just crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. Nope, it's about having a real plan. And to show us what this looks like in action, the book brings up one of the most methodical self-improvers in history. And that person, of course, is Benjamin Franklin. The book uses his personal project as like the ultimate case study for this whole idea of systematically pursuing happiness. So in his autobiography, Franklin talks about this bold and just arduous project he came up with. His goal? To achieve moral perfection. I mean, can you imagine? To live your life without making a single mistake? He knew this was a huge, huge undertaking, so he didn't just wish for it to happen. He engineered an entire system to make it a reality. So the first thing he did was identify these 13 virtues that he thought were absolutely essential for moral perfection. You've got things on this list like temperance, order, industry, humility, all the big ones. And he gave each one a really short, clear definition, so he knew exactly what he was aiming for. But here's the thing. A list is just a list, right? It's not a system. The real magic was in how he actually put this all into practice. Okay, so here's what he did. He made this little book, and for each of the 13 virtues, he had a dedicated page. And on that page was a simple grid with the days of the week. Now, each week, he would pour all of his focus into mastering just one of those virtues. Let's say it was Temperance Week. He'd still keep an eye on the other 12, but his main goal, his whole mission for that week, was to keep the temperance line on his chart totally clear of spots. Then, after 13 weeks, he'd have gone through the whole list, and guess what? He'd just start the cycle all over again. And here it is. This is what it actually looked like, a replica of a page from his book. You can see the virtues all abbreviated down the left side and the days of the week across the top. It's so simple. Every single night, he'd sit down, think about his day, and put a little black spot next to any virtue he'd slipped up on. That's it. Simple, methodical, and wow, was it effective. And this is the real kicker. This wasn't just some fun little personal experiment for him. Franklin literally attributed the constant felicity of his life, his deep, lasting happiness, to this little artifice. Think about that. He believed this simple chart was the engine driving his entire sense of well-being. That's incredible. All right, so that was Franklin's amazing system. But the book doesn't stop there. It actually lays out several other core pillars, things it considers absolutely essential for a happy life.
First on the list is cheerfulness, and man, Hardwick really puts a huge emphasis on this one. He argues that being cheerful isn't just some fleeting mood that comes and goes. No, it's a fundamental state of being that you have to actively cultivate. He even quotes the old proverb, "A merry heart doeth good like a medicine." In his mind, cheerfulness is our natural default state when we're healthy and balanced.
Then the book makes this really fascinating comparison. It contrasts what it calls the unlearned man with the educated man. So the unlearned man, he's basically a slave to his senses, right? He's always chasing the next new thing, always dealing with new cravings, and ultimately suffering from what they called ennui, that deep, soul-crushing boredom. But the educated man, he cultivates his mind, he reads books, he seeks knowledge, and by doing that, he unlocks what the author calls an inexhaustible treasury of happiness. What a great phrase. So, if you put it all together, the book gives us these 6 essential ingredients for a happy life. It's like a complete blueprint. We've already talked about cheerfulness and knowledge, but it says that independence, health, friendship, and this thing it calls competence are just as crucial. They're all the building blocks you need. So let's zoom in on that last one for a second. Competence. Now, when Hardwick says competence, he's not talking about being super rich or a millionaire. What he means is having enough financial security to be independent. To be free from that constant nagging worry and misery of just trying to get by. It's a really practical point, right? It's like he's saying, yeah, your inner world is key, but let's be real, you can't really be happy if your basic needs aren't being met. Okay, so here's the big question. What do we make of all this advice from way back in 1895? Is this just a cool historical artifact, or is there something in here that we can actually use in our own lives today? I mean, when you really look at it, a lot of this stuff feels surprisingly modern, doesn't it? Think about it. Franklin's chart, that's basically the 18th century paper version of a habit tracking app on your phone. The book's whole focus on using your reason to overcome your circumstances, that's a central idea in things like mindfulness and CBT today. And this whole concept of a systematic pursuit of a better life, that's just another way of talking about finding your purpose and living intentionally. And that kind of brings us to a final thought. You and I, we live in this world of endless distractions, right? Our attention is being pulled in a million different directions all at once. So what if this old-fashioned, almost radically simple idea, just focusing all your energy on improving one tiny thing each week, what if that's the ultimate life hack we've been looking for? Maybe that's exactly the kind of wisdom we need right now. It's definitely something to chew on.